Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hey, this is Jackie Cation, your host of the Dork Forest. You know the websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com. If you like a determiner, FamilyPetAncestry.com brings you to JackieCation.com. It's good times, you guys. Anyway, let's do the credits. Mike Rickberg's composed and sang that song you just heard. He sings with his wife, Sarah. He will sing again at the end of the program, the Mexican Hat Dance. Vilmos fixes JackieCation.com, and Patrick Brady's going to fix this audio. So that's credit where credit is due. JackieCation.com has many things, as does DorkForest.com, but Jackie Cation has the merch page. So if you were to want a CD or a DVD or a t-shirt, you got to go to the store page on JackieCation.com. There's Ranger t-shirts and CDs and DVDs. My new CD will come out the first week of March digitally, and then the end of March hard copies. So hope you are looking forward to that. There is an Amazon banner and an Amazon link on both Dork Forest and Jackie Cation. And all that is it's a portal into Amazon. You order like normal, and then the Dork Forest gets a kickback. So if you want to give to the show and you order from Amazon, that's one simple way to do it. You don't get charged extra. You just use the portal, the Amazon link, on Jackie Cation or to the DorkForest.com, and you just order like normal. Other than that, there is a donation button. If you enjoy the program and want to donate, feel free. Knock yourselves out. There's a PayPal button. You can donate monthly. If you like, $10 a month makes a super fan because it's 10 months and then 2 months when I ask you to donate to a food bank. Or you can donate all at once, or you don't have to donate. Don't worry about it. Just tell people about the show. And other than that, my calendar is on JackieCation.com, where you can see where I'm doing stand-up comedy. I am doing stand-up comedy in Los Angeles this week. So this is a good episode. Let's get into it. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room with, you know what? I didn't get to meet you, John Opdycke, when I was in Portland doing a benefit for your, open primaries.
Right.
Which is a grassroots, political group that wants there to be open primaries.
Right.
Hence the name. John Opdycke, welcome to the program.
It's so great to be here. I've been a longtime fan.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you very much. And I know you through Graham Elwood.
Yes.
From Comedy Film Nerds.
Yes.
And you know Graham Elwood from his childhood, I
Yes,
understand.
we grew up together in Evanston, Illinois.
Evanston. That's where my great aunt lived in Evanston.
It's a great town. We grew up there together, high school classmates. We actually stayed connected throughout college. When I was a freshman in college at the University of Michigan, I hitchhiked with another friend from Ann Arbor to Tucson, Arizona, where Graham went to school. It took us 4 days to get there.
Graham went to school in Tucson, Arizona?
Yeah, he went to University of Arizona. Yeah.
Did not know that. It's a pretty good school. Ann Arbor's a good school.
Ann Arbor's a great school.
Yep.
Arizona's a good school. Okay. Madison.
There you go.
And you grew up in Milwaukee.
I grew up outside of Milwaukee, sure.
Right down the shore or up the shore, like Michigan.
Around the bend of the shore. Sure. A lot of shore with the Great Lakes.
Shore.
Great Lakes got
Michigan.
a lot of kind of...
I go there every summer. I go to the Michigan side, the western coast of Lake Michigan.
Like Traverse City or?
Just below that. About an hour below it. Manistee, Michigan.
Very
have
pretty.
A little summer cottage
Very
there.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, John Opdycke, so... What I love, I've always wanted to have a watch dork on, and you collect antique watches.
Yes.
Have you always collected? Like
No. It's kind of growing up, I never had a watch.
You never had a watch?
I never had a watch. I found them very irritating. I found them, and I grew up in the late 70s, 80s. The digital watch, that was like a whole thing.
Swatch.
Right.
People wanted you to get a Swatch. I remember
or
in the
a Seiko
80s.
or a Casio or things like that, and they had the calculator features. It was like a whole thing.
It was very digital and very
digital.
Yeah.
And I found watches, bracelets, anything, necklaces, I didn't want to wear them. I always found I would fidget with them.
Okay. So you were like binding?
Yeah, binding, fidgeting. It was like, and so I would never wear them. Mm-hmm. But when I was, 30, my girlfriend found an antique and I knew it was from 1940 because it was engraved on the back. It said, to blah, 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 on your retirement, Top Hat Hotel, 1940.
Wow.
And it was a solid gold Longines, and she got it fixed up for me. and it's a mechanical watch, and I started wearing it after not wearing a watch my whole life, and I just loved it.
Well, because it was probably beautiful and mesmerizing.
It's gorgeous. It's slightly
Is
curved.
it solid gold?
Solid rose gold. And I actually, she had it. She had found it many years before and actually had tried to find this guy.
Yeah.
With no luck. And she just had it in her drawer. And I happened to mention, I'm like, oh, I saw someone wearing an antique watch. It was so beautiful. I've never been into watches. So she got it cleaned up for me for my birthday. But then I started just learning and educating myself about these old watches. And in particular, not like the Swiss Rolex and the high end, but like these grubby little American companies.
Right. That were just
from
making
Ohio and Illinois. And
there's a fancy watch place from Detroit now, isn't there?
Shinola. Yes.
Nola. Oh, Shinola?
Yeah. As
That's
in
hilarious.
What's the expression.
There is an expression. And
you don't know shit from Shinola.
That's
right.
it. That's it.
Right.
And cool.
No, they make watches and bikes and very high end stuff.
That's right. That's right. But did you go all mechanical?
All mechanical.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And then
the opposite of mechanical would be digital. Is that correct?
Well, there's mechanical.
Right.
There's automatic.
Oh.
And then there's digital.
Okay.
Quartz. Digital quartz. Or actually, digital is one type of watch run by a quartz mechanism.
Okay.
But manual is you have to physically wind the watch.
Okay.
And depending on the quality of the mechanism, of the movement, it's called, and the number of jewels in that movement, you have to wind it every 24 hours or 48 hours.
Oh, every day.
Oh, yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah,
you have to make sure your watch is wound.
Yes. Though the higher quality and more expensive, like I actually have a couple 1950s Rolexes.
Yeah.
That
sounds
you
amazing.
You can not wind the watch for 7 days, and it tells time for 7 straight days on one winding.
Wow.
But there's another type of movement called an automatic watch.
Okay.
Which is still it's a manual mechanism. Mm-hmm. And if you take the watch and you leave it in your drawer for a month, when you put it on, you have to wind it.
Okay.
But if you wear it every day, the motion of your wrist actually winds the watch.
Okay.
So that's
automatic.
That was an improvement. The quartz watch, which came in the 1970s, is where it's just, it's a battery.
It's a battery.
You never have to do anything.
And is the quartz the battery? Or is the battery the battery? Or the quartz something else is happening?
No. And the movement is a quartz movement.
Okay.
You have to power that movement with a battery.
Tiny watch battery.
With a tiny watch battery.
Got it.
Yes.
And what about, you said the jewels? Are those what the
Rubies.
Actual jewels are inside watches?
Yeah. Yeah.
My God.
They're tiny little shards. They're they look like little tiny pink gumdrops. They're the size of a pinhead. And, mechanisms, they're called movements, are low-end ones have 4 jewels, 8 jewels, 11 jewels. The standard is kind of a 15 or 18 jewel.
Okay.
You can get some very higher quality with 21 or 24 jewels. But the jewels are
these shards.
Yeah, and they're used as part of how do you create a mechanism that has all these gears in it that can keep telling time at a uniform pace and do it very smoothly. And watches that don't have any jewels, which you could buy like in a gumball machine in Atlantic City in 1920, they work for 6 months and then you throw them away. They don't have any lasting
for some
power.
reason the gemstone actually does something?
Yeah, they act, and I don't understand it. I'm not technical.
Right. No, you're not the
I don't open the back and
you're not. Don't mess with it. But
they do something. I think it's a combination of they lubricate. They allow for the certain mechanisms and cogs and gears to go together in a way in which the friction of the gears doesn't destroy the mechanism.
Right.
They play some role, which how you came to the conclusion that this little piece of gemstone
was going to do that.
Would do that. But we know, like a diamond. Like diamond is harder than any substance. So there's something about gemstones that
actually
do
react.
the trick.
I bet you it's science. You think it's science?
I think it's science.
It might be
you're
science.
Onto something there,
all right, John. All right. By the way, John Opdycke, it's at JB Opdycke, OPD, as in David, YCKE is your Twitter handle. And then openprimaries.org is the organization that I did the benefit for.
Yeah.
So, so you have a couple of, you have like Rolexes from the 50s?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Are they super beautiful?
I like them. I mean,
Right,
by
you think
today's
so.
standards,
Yeah.
men's watches by today's standards are giant. They like cover your whole arm practically.
Right, right.
These are small. These would actually be considered women's watches by today's sizing.
Oh, really? They're kind of delicate?
Yeah, I'll show you. Here.
Are you wearing one?
I'm wearing one right now.
Oh, dude.
You know, they're very dainty.
No, that would be the perfect size for me. You are correct.
Yeah.
That is, wow. So that's, what is that?
This is a 61 Rolex manual wine watch.
Wow.
And you know, I got it on eBay.
You got it on eBay.
Yeah. And I love it.
And you love it. And did you have to buy a new wristband for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not actually. I will, but this is the one that came with it. It'll last about a year.
Okay.
If you have a leather band.
It's only about a year.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I just started wearing watches probably 10, 15 years ago because of stand up.
You gotta know your time.
Yeah, you got to know your time. You got to do your time. And then, matter of fact, I'm going to put this microphone down.
Okay.
And the first watch.
Jackie is retrieving her watch. And
I never had a watch before, and my friend who collects watches got that for me for Christmas one year. It's like a $75 Fossil. And it was 15 years ago, and it was back when giant watches on women were very popular.
Right.
Because it's a giant, just chrome watch.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is that you can see the face. And so I know what time it is.
Yes, you can see the face.
Right, by just glancing at it. I used to do a joke where I'd tap my wrist so that I could check my watch, so I could check my time. And this thing is actually, the battery died, so I have to go get a new battery. It's a great story.
Looks
Anyway,
good. I like that watch.
That's all right. And then I just bought a watch about a year ago that is just a Seiko, just another $7,500 watch that is all gold and shiny. And it has this metal band though that has links. And then it has to get adjusted for size. Do you have any that have links, or do you mostly go with the leather
mostly
band?
leather bands, but I have a couple metal bands. I have some really cool metal bands too, like very unusual ones.
Like they're engraved or something? Like, what do you mean?
No. It's one little subsection of watches that I have are Soviet watches. They're made in Russia in the 1950s. And
What?
the way I got into this was fascinating. So there is a watch company, and I'm blanking. I think it's Hampton.
Okay.
Though if you look it up, I might be wrong about this, but they were a watch company in Ohio, outside Cincinnati.
Okay.
They were founded in like 1910 or something like that. In 1924, the Soviet government
Yeah.
bought this watch company
In Ohio. Weird.
packed up all the equipment,
Yeah.
put it on barges,
Yeah.
offered all their senior technicians and watchmakers and, not the guys who just kind of came in and worked, but the people who design watches,
Yeah.
offered them full-time jobs in the Soviet Union. And like of the 60 guys, like 8 of them said, okay, I'll do it.
I'll go to.
And they went to Russia and like lived their lives there making watches.
Weird.
And they transformed this American watch company into a Soviet watch company because they had no watch industry in the Soviet Union. And I'm like, God, that is so weird.
That is super weird. And and they might be called Hampton watches,
Yes.
but it's an Ohio company.
And then they would just renamed it. Now they named it whatever the St. Petersburg.
The Russian Bear Hampton, whatever.
Exactly, the Russian Bear. But then I'm like, wow, that's odd. You don't think of, when you think of watches, you don't think of the Soviet Union.
No.
Okay? You think of Switzerland.
You don't even think of America.
Right. Although America in the 1920s, dozens and dozens of great watch companies.
Really?
And the Depression wiped a lot of them out. A lot of them were consolidated in the bigger firms like Bulova, Hamilton.
Okay.
There's a great watch company I love called Illinois.
Oh, Illinois?
Yeah.
As in
As in the
Evanston,
state.
Illinois?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was a watch company that was founded by one of the guys who bankrolled Abe Lincoln. And they started in like 1868 or something. And
What?
they made pocket watches,
Okay.
railroad watches. And then they started making wristwatches after World War I, which is when wristwatches kind of came in.
Okay. So pocket watches were pre-World War.
Yes.
Everyone just sort of walked around with a watch. I remember ladies had watches on necklaces.
Yes, and brooches.
And you're like,
bracelets.
I gotta
Yeah.
lean in and look at my
Yeah.
own left breast.
And they were tiny. Like you
Yeah.
had to have like the eyesight of like a 12-year-old to be able to read them, you know.
Yeah, because they were delicate. Because
Right.
ladies are delicate. Also, turns out bad eyesight. It doesn't affect gender. Weird. So it was all pocket, and they called them railroad watches.
Yeah, they would make certain watches for railroad workers to
Yeah.
be able to set the timing of the train. Though I know these terms. I don't know
Yeah.
what that means. I don't know
Right.
why you couldn't just use a regular pocket watch.
Yeah.
To me, it's like,
Okay.
why would you call it a railroad watch? But
Right, maybe
they
it
did.
was a specific style or
Yeah,
something.
something.
It was super big. It had another
Right.
row of numbers.
Exactly.
Who knows what the hell was going on?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so then wristwatches come into popularity after World War One.
Yeah, they were in existence before World War I,
Yeah.
but they weren't popular.
Okay,
And they weren't common. And in World War I, they began to be mass produced because the soldiers in the trenches, before they went out to be slaughtered,
yes,
they had to know what time it was. And there's actually these wristwatches that have metal guards over them
yeah.
that to protect from the shrapnel and the bullets and all that.
Oh, to protect the crystal.
Right. That are just gorgeous. But they're it's like this
War-
metal cage over the watch.
Over the watch because you're about to go get shot at,
Right.
and you don't want to lose your watch.
Right.
We want to be able to harvest that off of your body.
Harvest it, exactly. But a lot of those early wristwatches are just pocket watches stuck with a strap around them.
Okay,
You know,
so
they-
giant, of varying size,
or smaller
sizes.
versions, but like the place where you wind them is
Yeah,
on the top.
it was on the top.
Not on the side.
Yeah.
You know.
And so I wonder who was like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to, let's make it smaller and put
Exactly.
it on the side kind of thing.
Yeah.
So watches are very beautiful. They are, and nobody carries them anymore because of cell phones.
No, it's true.
And nobody wears them. But, I kind of enjoy it. I think that they're kind of great.
Yeah.
So how many different Soviet watches did you have, or do you, yeah.
I have about
Have
20.
You've played through about 20?
Yeah, and they're they're
varying.
Yes, and what's interesting about them, and I kind of went on this journey of like, oh, they have Soviet watches. What are they? Who makes them? There's because it was it was communist. It wasn't like there was a market economy. So I think every watch company
Right.
was part of just one watch company called Victory.
Okay.
In Cyrillic, it looks like Pobeda,
Okay.
which means victory.
Okay.
And they made the thing that I got into is that the culture of Soviet watches, at least post World War II,
Okay.
was that anytime they did anything, like, hey, we just designed a new wheat thresher
Okay.
that can do 42 bales an hour instead
Yeah.
of 38, commemorative watch.
Oh, commemorative watch?
Commemorative watch. Hey, we just opened up a submarine base on an Arctic island near Japan. Commemorative watch.
Commemorative.
Hey, we just put up now.
Those make them super collectible.
Oh, yeah. And then when they did things that were really achievements, like, hey, we just launched Sputnik.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, the astronaut.
Yeah.
All these commemorative watches with his face on it, pictures of Sputnik, all these things. But they
Right.
didn't stop there. They're like, we
But
just
anything.
designed a new bomber
Right.
that has 4 jets instead of 2. Commemorative watch.
We're repurposing the word pizza, commemorative watch,
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yes.
It's, that's fascinating. And then possibly every year for whatever, Bastille Day was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that kind of thing. So do you have some of those?
Yeah.
Or any? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Which ones?
I have and then they have also kind of like revolutionary heroes too, like your Fidel watch,
Oh, okay.
your Che watch,
Really?
your Lumumba watch.
Who was
kind of
Lumumba?
Patrice Lumumba in the Congo.
Thank
He
you.
was the first.
Yeah. It's, once you said the Congo, I was like, vaguely.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of info, but
Yeah.
I got the name. Okay, better.
They had and it's interesting to think of all the purges and all the kind of the politics in the Soviet Union pre-World War II, post-World War II,
Yeah.
Stalin's kind of rampages, people that were heroes one year,
And
not the
then
next.
vilified, yeah.
And you think, I mean, I don't know any of this to be true, but I look at like a watch and you wonder like, with this watch, like in 1962, you could wear it, but in 1964, you'd be shot for wearing it, or like were people
right.
or out, or
Right, don't wear that watch.
Right.
Or just because that guy is no longer cool.
Right.
Interesting.
And they're beautiful. The thing is there's a certain, if you look at art in the Soviet Union, it was in the teens and 20s, like right after the revolution.
Right.
It's very connected to kind of surrealism and Art Deco and
it's pointy and boxy, is it not?
It is, but there's a certain it's not disconnected from some of the cubism and some of the trends in broader art circles that were challenging conventions. It wasn't disconnected, from Kandinsky and things like that.
Okay.
And then you have the kind of, as the Soviet Union becomes more Stalinist and commercial, not commercial, and repressive.
Yeah.
And it just becomes all about this socialist realism.
Okay.
But even so, there's a certain artistic beauty of these watches that didn't quite get purged. In a way, it got purged in ballet and theater and.
Oh, okay. Because it was small enough to sort of slip through the cracks.
Watches,
Yeah, what we're going to send somebody to look at the watch company and see what they're doing?
No, exactly.
Leave them alone.
So both the cases are very unusual outlines. They're not circles, they're not squares, they're these weird.
Yeah.
They're weird.
Yeah.
And some of the color schemes they're absolutely beautiful.
Right. Oh my God. So they're colorful.
Yeah.
There's do they come with cases too? Because sometimes I've seen like sort of clap, like, something that'll click on top and it'll be and then you push a button and it opens up, kind of like a spy, like you would think that Soviets would have a spy watch.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
No, they're the funny thing about them is that they're very high quality.
Really?
They're working people's watches. They're mass produced. They're produced for the
so they're not to be they are pretty resilient.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a certain kind of culture of mass production that there needed to be some quality and durability. It's not even quality in the way that a Swiss Rolex has a certain delicate quality. These are like, this watch needs to work.
Right, because that guy needs to be on time,
right.
And there should be no excuse.
And he's not going to buy a watch every year like in America where there's a consumer culture.
Yes.
In the Soviet Union, it was a much different culture.
Yeah,
It was about durability.
Okay.
And so it just needed to work.
Yeah. And so are they pretty, so because of that pragmatism, so the big company was called Victory, but like Hampton or whatever it was called comes in, and they bought another one, let's say from wherever that came in, and now they're all under Victory, but they're all creating in their own sort of art. They're in their own.
I think so.
Places, because the watches look different.
Yes, there's so many different ones.
Like distinct, like
oh, totally. They're different faces, different styles, different shapes of the cases. What's common to them is they're wind-up watches.
Okay.
That have a certain kind of proletarian functionality.
Right. Okay.
There's not a bunch of fancy ones.
Right. They all have numbers on them. They don't have like dashes or anything.
And there's no like, but within that context of this is a workaday watch that'll last you for 20 years.
Right.
The art of them, my favorite one that I have has these two little polar bears on it.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. And this island, and it's this,
on the face?
On the face.
Okay.
And it's got this absolutely gorgeous, like aqua blue background and these little Arctic islands. And then there's like these little Cyrillic words, which I've never translated, but to me, it's like, we planted our flag on this little island next to Greenland.
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah. And that's what it was for.
Bears. Yeah.
And so do the faces move? Like, is there, you know how like sometimes the watch, the face will move and it rotates and it makes a moon and a thing?
No.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. There's none of that. Those are called, I'm
bullshit
blanking.
watches.
Yeah. But they're called, functions, intricacies, something where
Okay.
you can buy these Swiss watches that are like, this will tell the moon phase and this one will
Yes.
have a power
Tides.
reserve and it will
Yeah.
tell the tides and all these no, these Soviet watches are like, here's what time it is, comrade. And we're going to, commemorate one of our great achievements.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. And so you've got like 20 of them. And, so that one, I mean, describe them. I mean, I just want to hear what the other ones look like. I mean, is it pretty because of the colors? Is it pretty because of the designs on them?
I think it's, for me, and this is just me, other people would have different reasons, but I find it's almost like looking into a lost world of like here was a culture, a country that, it made a revolution in 1917. There was a huge tumult. At one point, like 14 countries invaded the Soviet Union. Like everybody invaded them.
Right. They're like, this can't possibly.
To take this over.
Yeah.
They fought that back. They, in some ways, very quickly became a corruption.
Yeah.
Stalin was responsible for both bringing the country into modernization.
Right.
And was also killed 20 million people.
Right.
They also were the ones who beat the Nazis. Like there's all these things that are so contradictory and repressive and yet interesting. And here amidst these gorgeous, colorful watches.
Yeah.
Emerge.
That you're like, okay, so someone wore this in 1919 as they marched down the street.
Well, these are later. These are the ones I have are all post World War II.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're but you feel their DNA. You feel some connection.
Yeah.
To a certain
to the history of it.
It's helpful to ask that. You feel a connection to the promise of the Soviet Union and a connection to the repression of Stalinism.
Right, and the failures of it.
The failures of it.
Yeah.
It's both things in a watch.
Right. If anything sums up, I mean, and this is sweeping, and I'm sure the Russians are like a little too sweeping. But, but if there's anything that really sums up Russia, it is the fact that there's so much promise and there's so much possibility, and yet there's so much failure and so much, like, for some reason, just rage. And it's like this, there is so much repression like throughout their entire history, where you're like, what is happening? You've got options here, and you've got some of the sturdiest, strongest people are living in these crazy situations and have been for thousands of years. And yet, for some reason, you can't be nice to each other. What's happening? And, it's weird, but that's fascinating. I get that same feeling sometimes when I look at a book and I see the publication date. Like, and I'll see like, 1941. This was actually published in 41.
Right.
In London.
Yeah.
Okay. Did someone read this in 41 while they were in an air raid?
An air raid shelter or, yeah.
And so I get what you're saying about that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what else do you collect besides the Russian ones? Is there themes, or is it just
the Russian ones, and then I like American watches from the 20s, 30s, 40s.
Okay.
And
beyond.
Full of Hamilton, Illinois.
Is Hamilton named after
Ben Russ? There's a great watch company called Ben Russ.
RUSSE?
No, BENRUS.
Oh, Ben Russ.
The owners was like Ben and Russ. Okay. But I had the good fortune of, when I started doing this, I didn't have any money. I'm a political activist. It's not like I'm like, using my trust fund, I was able to buy 1,000 watches. So I would I'd have to go on eBay and can I get
Hope
this
and pray.
watch for like $30? And I found a guy, I live and work in Manhattan, who I found a watch repair place right across from my office.
Okay.
And it was run by a guy named Mr. Maddox.
Okay.
Who was 90.
Okay.
He opened this office in 1944.
Wow.
So I'd go to, and his eyes, he wore sharp as a tack. And this guy was like, it was like going back in time.
Talking to that
to
guy,
a guy.
or going to his place?
And I'd go to his place, and he would regale me with hilarious stories of old New York, of 1940s and 50s New York, and just scams that he was involved in. And relationships he's had, and he's never been married. He's like a bachelor.
Right, a lifelong bachelor.
Yeah, lifelong bachelor who had just at 90, I'm not kidding, just broken up with his girlfriend because she wanted different
She wanted to get married?
Yeah. And she was a younger woman. She was in her mid 70s, and
Sure. What could she have wanted? I'm always wondering what people want.
I don't know.
Out of any relationship,
I don't
quite
know.
honestly. But I'm always just like, is it working? Are we living? Yes, we are. So, but that's fascinating. So what what's the big streets that his watch shop, is he still there, or is he?
I don't, I moved my office a couple years ago and I stopped expanding my collection.
Right.
And so I haven't been there in about 18 months.
Okay.
I can't.
But
it was on Beekman and Center, Beekman and Park Row in Lower Manhattan. A little fifth story one, probably a 200 square foot office, like in an office building. You just go there, you knock on the door, you open it up, and
so not at street level?
No, not street level. Like
so you have to go upstairs.
Yeah, you go upstairs.
You have to know it's there.
Oh yeah, you have to know it's there.
Yeah.
He's been there since World War II.
Right.
Repairing watches. And he taught me this thing. He said, 9 times out of 10, when you go to a jewelry store and you're like, can you repair this watch? They'll be like, oh, of course, we have these great technicians, and look behind. Then they put it in a sack and they send it over to him.
Right.
And he just fixes these things, and he's got this wife beater t-shirt on. He's kind of this like smelly, wiry, like
old dude,
old school guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's all for show, including they'll sometimes have at some of these fine jewelry stores, they'll even have a guy in the back who looks like a Swiss gentleman, like with a little eye thing, or he'll do like 5% of the repairs on certain watches, and 95% of them they just put in a bag, send them over to him.
Yeah.
He charges $10, he sends them back, and they charge you $100, that kind of thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Why isn't he charging 30? Anyway, the markup is crazy.
Yeah.
I will say this: I had to get my Seiko needed a new battery when I was just in Minneapolis, and I had a fascinating experience of trying to get a battery for a watch, and so I go to a place called Fixology. It was a sort of a kiosk-y kind of thing in a mall.
Okay.
And they're like, we fix watches. And, so I bet you they're sending them off to Bill on Beaker.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right.
And, but I was like, I just need a new battery. And they're like, it'll be $20.
Yeah.
And I was like, $20? The watch costs $75.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm good. And there's like, well, we clean it and we oil it. And I was like, do you? And then, I took it to Macy's and I thought, well, that'll be fine. It'll be, cause the last time I got a watch, it was $5 at a pawn shop.
Right.
And a new battery. And Macy's was like, it's $60.
Yeah.
And, finally I was in Minneapolis and I went to a jewelry store and it was $10.
Right.
And I thought, this seems fair.
Right.
They're just going to pop it open, put in a new battery and close it because they've bought the tool set is what I'm saying. I don't own the tool set, which has the
to
gripper.
crack it open, the gripper, right.
Yeah, that weird wiry gripper thing. So,
Right.
but yours are all manual.
Yeah.
So they don't even need
no batteries.
You just have
They
to
don't
remember.
tell great time. That's
They're
the other thing with
it's
these
just
watches.
okay?
Yeah, if it tells within 2 to 5 minutes a day, you're happy.
Okay.
Well,
that's not bad actually.
Yeah.
You're like,
I don't demand to know exactly what time it is.
Yes.
I just need to know the general scope of
right.
where
Is it
I
about
am.
10 to 2? Yes. I would
Yes,
like that.
exactly.
That'd be perfect.
If I need to know exactly what time it is, you just go to your phone.
Right. The phone is available at all times now.
Yeah.
And then other people have clocks up on the wall.
Right.
So yeah, it's, and everyone's 5 minutes late anyway. So, or I'm always 20 minutes early.
Are you?
I am. And everyone's 15 minutes late.
It's the Midwesterner in you.
Yeah. So 35 minutes of me being alone. Luckily I have an emergency book at all times. So I can do a little rereading.
Cool.
If necessary. So you've got, so did you get, and this is a question a lot of people wouldn't ask. I don't have that kind of problem. So did you get a deal on these Rolexes? Because these, like a solid gold Rolex or even a Rolex. Because the big thing about Rolexes, right, is that they don't go tick, tick, tick. They go hum, right?
Is that true?
Isn't that
I've heard that. I've never actually looked at it.
Yeah, look at your second.
I guess you're right. Yes.
It's just humming along.
I mean, the thing is that they're really well made.
Yeah.
And this one is 60 years old and actually tells perfect time. And I only have to wind it once every 4 or 5 days.
What?
and it's just really attractive. It sits well. Like you really. I only have 2 of these, and I got them for like $900 each. That's the thing. It's like there's certain Rolexes that are used Rolexes that are high in demand. So,
yes.
You know, Submariners and certain types, Daytonas.
And a new one is like $15,000 or something, right?
15 to 250,000. It depends
Jesus.
on the metal, if it's platinum, if it's got jewels, you know.
Right.
It's a whole thing. It's
Right.
like
It's a whole.
It's
social.
a Lamborghini,
Yes.
Ferrari world.
Right.
This is a style that was not particularly popular. It's not in demand. Collectors don't. I don't collect ones that are collectible. That's the thing. My watch collection is all watches that are not collectible.
Okay.
But I just like them.
You like watches, and you like the idea of that slice of history, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you said that's a 61?
Yeah.
So 61, that's when they put the wall. That's the Berlin Wall, right?
Well, you're making connections that don't exist.
Right.
But one, I mean,
that's not what you think of, but that's what,
exactly.
like if I collected watches and I got a 1961 watch, I'd be like, oh, what else happened in 61? Who's walking around with this thing?
Right.
You know, what fancy Don Draper dude is walking around wearing that?
Right.
As he, you know, has to, I just read a bunch of spy novels that were written in the 40s through the 60s.
Like Graham Greene?
Helen McGuinness.
Okay.
And she was British, and she lived in London during the air raids, and she wrote these weird spy novels that are essentially they're like North by Northwest, right? Where regular people get sucked into a world of espionage.
Right.
And there's usually sort of she also wrote 3 romance novels that are some of the sad, sackiest romance novels I've ever. I'm like, okay, I get it. Post-war or middle of the war, not the most cheerful
not good
time.
pickings.
Right. So everybody's super, and they're usually set in like 38. Like a couple, like the one romance novel of hers I tried to read, it was set in 1938 in London. And there'd be these German characters who'd come in, but it was published in like 44.
Okay.
Or 43. So it's super anti-German.
Right.
And you're like, oh, okay. So love in a time of cholera is what you're telling me this is. And yet not as cheerful as that. And, so I stopped reading her after I tried the first. Here's a couple of them right here, actually. Helen McGuinness. And, like the Venetian Affair is written in the, I think these 3 are from the 60s. This Above Suspicion one was, I think.
Wow, 8 months on the New York Times bestseller list. So there's a little something going on here.
That was a movie. So it was published in 61. It was made into a movie with I think Ed Asner is the only name I can remember offhand who was in that movie.
Got it.
And it's essentially the story of 2 Berlins, right? Kind of thing, and Venice, and
got it.
And it's amazing. And there's a lot of dust in my house. So, but that's where I would go because you make me now want to collect watches.
Well, I have one watch. Again, most of mine is Soviet and early American, but I have a Swiss watch by a company called Doxa. Doxa.
Okay.
This company sold watches to the Wehrmacht and to the British Army during World War II.
Both of them?
Yes. Swiss were neutral. And part of me is like,
and when they say neutral, they mean
they're making money off everybody.
Jackasses.
Exactly.
Yes.
They're profiteering off everybody. But I just find that like, wow. There's just something fascinating about that.
I find it gutsy stuff. Gutsy stuff, Swiss. Good for you. Good for you for selling the panning and the gold rush guys. The guys who made all the money were the people who sold the pans and the pickaxes.
Right. I guess that's how you make your fortune.
That's California lore.
Right.
And California lore will tell you that all the big money guys were
and Levi Strauss.
And Levi Strauss.
Made their jeans.
Yeah,
the guys who made their jeans, pickaxes, and pans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't the gold. The gold didn't make anybody. It made some people rich, but they probably just blew it like it was the lottery.
Right.
So that is crazy. So you've been doing this. How long have you been collecting them?
I don't know, 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then have you always, now I want to talk briefly about, because I'm talking to you guys, Rangers, John Opdycke, Opdycke, and it's at JB as in boy, Opdycke, Opdycke, and openprimaries.org is the benefit I did. And I wanted to have you on the show because we're in troubled times.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason not to have open primaries, because we need to something's broken. And so tell people what open primaries is for the heck of it.
It's an organization working to enact and protect and advocate for primary elections that allow everybody to vote for who they want.
So it's not just, you're not just voting Republican primaries or Democratic primaries.
But having a primary in which all the candidates appear on the ballot, and then all the voters get to vote and choose from whoever they want.
Right.
And the top two vote
So
getters.
Gary and Jill and Bernie and Hillary and
Imagine if we had a presidential primary where all the candidates were available for all the voters.
And then the top two would just run against each other,
Right.
or?
Yeah. And I think the reason I think, and I spend a lot of time and energy, and there's a growing movement for this,
Okay.
is that one of the things you mentioned, we're in troubled times. And certainly there is there's no one problem with American politics, or some like, if we fix that, this would, no. But one of the features of American politics right now is the ways in which the American people, we're in a pickle. We're divided. Mm-hmm. But the divisions are not, I always get upset when they say, oh, these are kind of natural divisions. No, the American people have a lot of different opinions about things, but we're manipulated by these very sophisticated political organizations called the parties to see our differences as somehow tribal, that we have
regional,
that we have to reject people that have different opinions, that we have to find ways to demonize other people.
Yeah.
And we're in a constant campaign. I mean, one of the things I can't stand right now is the campaign hasn't ended. You'd think that when you have an election, that you could just then say, okay, we're done with the election. We're
done with the election. Now we have to run the country.
Now we have to run the country.
At least for 3 years.
It's just a permanent campaign. And I think that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, in different ways with their different constituencies, they keep people ginned up. And they keep people in a frenzy, and they keep them very...
we're all supposed to be terrified at all times.
Terrified and at each other's throats. And I think what open primaries, what we're pushing for, is, would it be possible for the American people to come together around new candidacies and issues in ways that were not completely controlled by the gatekeepers, by the existing establishment? Now, I'm not saying if liberals and conservatives found ways to come together that utopia would break out. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
But it creates some new possibilities.
Right. I mean, it is one of the myriad of things that are broken around us. And the thing is this is the thing you're working towards.
Right.
Whenever I think about, people are like, well, the real problem is, I think there was a sketch on Colbert the other night. It was these 3 women going to the Women's March in D.C. And, there was a straight white woman who was like, well, we're going for, reproductive rights and the rights of women. And then there was a gay woman who was like, we're going for LBG, the gay rights and make sure that we get to marry. And then there was a black woman who's like, yeah, whatever. We would like our, black people would like to, not be treated like, vermin. And, I paraphrase.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all 3 of them had very distinct things. And there was, they were making fun of the fact that those 3 women who were on the same side were also super specific about what they wanted to move forward on. And whether your issue is, a Muslim registry, which is my issue, or immigration, or it's, or open primaries, or the fact that the technical part of the government seems to be broken. I mean, the mechanics seems to be manipulated so tightly wound that nobody can get in between the cracks to fix it. And so I think we all have to it doesn't matter what you're trying to fix. Just don't shit on somebody else and what they're trying to fix. It's fine that my concentration is whatever it is and your concentration is something else. They're both broken. And it doesn't mean I can't support what you're trying to do here. It seems important.
Well, yes, and I think that's very well put. And I think the question of how we do politics in America, and in some ways the world, but particularly in America, how we do politics is now an important question. And I've been doing this for 25 years.
Yeah.
And for years and years and years, people looked at me and my colleagues like we're crazy because we're working on issues of political process.
Right.
People are like, what do you mean? The process is the process. What's important is the issues. But actually, what's starting to happen is that Americans from a lot of different backgrounds are saying, it turns out the process is rigged. The process is unfair. The process is exclusionary. Hasn't grown.
Yeah.
The way we do politics is the same way that Dwight Eisenhower did politics.
Right. And there were 100 million less people in the country.
Right. And we have new technologies. We have so many things have changed culturally. Mm-hmm. And yet the democracy is not kept pace.
Yeah.
And so I think Donald Trump opportunized off that in some very smart ways.
Right. And the supervillains that surrounded him, played him and pointed him in the direction they wanted him to point. Because, there's plenty of opportunity to cheat.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity, much more now to cheat than there was when it was all manual, when everyone had to roll up their own watch, It's so.
Yeah, though I frankly think the ways in which the system is rigged and corrupted is not in those cheating ways. It's much more systemic and profound. And sometimes, like in New York, we had a primary between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
3.5 million people in New York who paid taxes to pay for that primary, which cost $25 million. Were systematically told they have no right to participate in that primary because they're independent voters. And if you say, okay, I'll join the Democratic Party, they say, too bad. You had to have done it 6 months ago. You can't do this. And that's a kind of like, there's 3 times as many independents as Republicans in New York City. This is not some little group of Mennonites or something.
Right.
This is the largest group of voters in this country are no party independent voters. And yet they're told in state after state
that they can't take part in the initial choice.
Right. And the initial election is, forget even president.
Yeah.
Down the ballot, it's the only election in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And so to me, that is a kind of corruption it doesn't even look like corruption. It just looks at this is how we do things.
It looks like bureaucracy is what it looks like.
It looks like bureaucracy, but it's actually, wow, that is deep.
That is manipulative and someone's got an agenda.
Right.
And the agenda is what? Is to keep the power where it is?
Yeah. One of the reasons I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and I've listened to your podcast for years and I listen to dozens of them.
Dork Forest. Get in.
Think of the direct relationship you have with your listeners.
Yeah.
And I've heard you talk and others talk very intimately about this is not just another technical way to get out your thing. It's a unmediated way to create a relationship. And when you go to do stand up in Cincinnati, those fans are there and you know them already and they know you.
Right.
Part of what we have in politics is you still have these old guard gatekeepers, these parties that are the same now. Now they might have changed how they look and new technologies, but they control how things get organized.
Yeah.
They're like the ABC, NBC, and CBS of 1964.
Right.
There is no, and so in so many arenas, technology, culture, media, there's been a dismantling of the gatekeepers. There's been a democratization of.
In the entertainment industry, in the book industry, in
so many areas of life.
Okay.
In politics, it's still completely controlled by these tiny organizations. And to your point of why do they want these? They want to stay in power.
Yeah.
And they fear more than anything. They fear the American people finding ways to come together that break through the left-right. I call it a myth.
Yeah.
I think that we're all taught that liberals and conservatives, that it's almost genetic. Like it's a different, we have these differences and that makes each other our enemies. And I think it's a complete overstatement of how things are actually organized.
Interesting.
There was a poll that was done very recently that asked people a fascinating question. It said, do you think the divisions in the country are best understood as between liberals and conservatives or between the Washington elite and the American people.
Yeah.
And 76% of people said, oh yeah, it's between the Washington elite and the American people. It's not between liberal Americans and conservatives Americans. No. It's between insiders and outsiders.
It's interesting because I have, my personal Facebook page is almost entirely political at this time. And I get people come up to me after shows because my personal Facebook page is relatively public. Like if you want to follow my personal Facebook page, you can.
Got it.
If you get rude to me, I block you.
It's not just your junior high school friends.
No, and those people are banana heads sometimes. It's because I didn't have any friends in junior high. So, but the interesting thing about how political I am online is that when you talk to me in real life, I want to talk to you about life. I'm not the stuff I put up on the Facebook stuff is more a reminder for me to read it, to be informed, and to be angry about different things,
right.
And it's not because I need to be reminded to be angry because I'm a middle-aged white lady and I'm living in a gravy boat. So it's pretty sweet over here. And, but people will meet me in real life and they're like, well, you don't talk about politics all the time in real life. And I was like, no, I think about politics a fair amount because I'm alive.
Right.
But I don't, but out in public, I would like to, what are you going to order? Oh,
right.
you getting the club? Oh, it looks nice. And, that's Republicans and Democrats or liberals and conservatives or progressives and racists or whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, in real life, we're all just talking about club sandwiches and we have more in common with each other than we do with the people that are the Washington elite. I think.
Yes.
Or whatever that is defined as.
And I think that the way politics is organized right now, the culture of it, as organized by the Democratic and Republican parties, is that there is a huge push to categorize people in very constrictive boxes and silos that are based on labeling people. And I think that activity of labeling people at a time in American and world history in which there is so much emergence, so much transformation, some good, some bad. There is so much fluidity.
Yeah.
The whole political culture is you are this.
Yeah. And that's all you are.
Right. It's all you are. And I'm a leftist. I'm a progressive. I am unashamed of that. I'm very proud of that. And I cringe when I see my fellow progressives, fellow liberals and people on the left engage in the most backward labeling of people as if people are just one thing and that, calling someone who voted for Trump, you're a racist.
Right.
As if that actually is harmful to the process of moving the country forward. And it's just not true. People are all over the place.
They're all over the place. And it's not one thing that made things happen. And it's not one thing that can fix it.
Right.
So what is openprimaries.org doing? You're working, I know, state to state, right? Because
we're working all over the country, state to state, ballot referendums, legal fights, legislative fights, public education efforts, coalition building. There's a lot of,
and there's been an upswell
huge upswing
in people being interested in this, right?
Yes.
Huge. In what, the last 5 or 6 years or?
Well, last 5 or 6 years in California in 2010, we passed a sweeping open primaries measure.
Okay.
And it transformed California politics, which used to be the least competitive in the country. It's now the most competitive at the state level.
Right.
Has made a very big difference. There's some very interesting races now, like the California race for U.S. Senate. The two finalists were not a Democrat and a Republican. It's two Democrats.
Oh.
Two women of color.
Was it Kamala?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she ran against Sanchez.
Right. And they were both great.
They were both great.
I liked both of them.
Right. And
I ended up voting for Kamala, I think. But
there you go. But part of what and now some people
nobody
say,
needs to know that.
Oh, you don't have a Republican in the general election. That means it's two Democrats. Blah, 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 blah. No, it means that the voters of California were able to all participate in the primary and vote for the two candidates that they thought were the best.
Right.
And they happen to be two Democrats.
For that job.
Right. And then you had two Democrats running against each other. In a lot of states where they don't have that, the Democrat just says, vote for me because I'm the Democrat.
Yeah.
I'm not the Republican. And they don't have to talk about what they stand for, what they're going to do, and they don't have to talk to Republicans and independents. And
Right.
likewise, you know, one of our strongest advocates is a very conservative Republican in South Dakota. And South Dakota is controlled by the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm for open primaries because his name is Joe Kirby. He's a very successful business guy.
Okay.
He said, my party does much better when they have to go out and talk to people that are not in the party.
Right.
When Republicans have to go talk to Democrats and independents, they're able to live up to their conservative ideals. He said a lot of these Republicans in South Dakota, they're
say I'm a
hypocritical.
Republican.
They
Yeah.
say I'm a conservative Republican, and then they go do all these stupid deals and
Right.
behind closed doors that don't
That
reflect
aren't
that.
reflect the things that they claim to believe in.
Exactly.
Interesting. How many states have open primaries?
Okay, so we have
50 states.
We have 50
I know
states.
that.
Okay. No, we have what's called top two primaries, which is the complete nonpartisan primaries. There's not a Democratic primary and a Republican primary. There's
Okay.
just a primary.
Okay.
We have that in California, Washington, and Nebraska.
Washington State
Washington State.
and the state of Nebraska.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Then there are what are called open primaries, which is there is a Democratic primary and a Republican primary, and independents can choose one of those.
Okay.
And those are in about 20 states, including
Okay.
Colorado, where we just passed a referendum last year to enact that.
Okay.
And
so
then
a
about
little bit-
another 25 states have closed primaries where only Democrats can vote in Democratic primaries, only Republicans can vote in Republican primaries, and independents can't vote.
at all in the primaries.
Exactly.
That's insane.
Exactly.
I think that was the rule when I signed up. California didn't have open primaries when I
Right.
moved here. And so I had to pick a lane
Yeah.
if I wanted to vote in the primaries.
Right.
And so I did. And ever since then I've reconciled that
Right.
I'm essentially a tax and pay Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing, but it's so less than half of the country.
Yeah.
But these strides that you've made, has that been mostly in the last 10 years?
I mean, 2010 in California was a big game changer, though it didn't get a huge amount of media.
Yeah.
But the 2016 presidential primary,
Yeah.
the fact that so many people were shut out of voting in it,
Yeah.
the fact that it was so controversial. I mean, you had Trump kind of destroying the Republican establishment. You had Bernie really challenging
The Democratic. Yeah.
establishment. But, it's interesting to look at Bernie. Bernie was able to win many states that had open primaries, and then he got crushed in states that had closed primaries.
Right. Didn't he joined the Democratic
Yeah.
Party so that he could probably get into those primaries to some extent, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. He had
Yeah.
he had to become a Democrat.
And then he's gone back, right? He's
No,
independent
he's
again?
not. Well, I mean, I think he has stayed a Democrat.
Okay. Yeah. Just curious.
Yeah.
It's, at this point, it's so up in the air. Like, we don't know what's going to happen from day to day. We're living in The Apprentice. So,
That's true.
who will get the rose? So where do you go from here?
I think you just mixed your Bachelor and your
completely.
Apprentice
I don't watch
metaphors
any,
as well.
I don't watch any
Which,
reality television.
No, I don't either, except in little 5-minute bursts where I'm like
I'll see a
fascinated
clip.
by it.
I'll
Right.
see a clip.
Right. I mean, it's so fluid. There's so much opportunity and danger in American politics right now. I mean, there's certainly, I think the fact that the gatekeeper institutions, the Democrats and Republicans, and when I say that, the parties are more than just the little committees. It's the
Right.
whole apparatus and their media that's connected to them, the way Fox is connected to the Republicans, and
Right.
there's a whole apparatus of politics that failed in
Yeah.
2016. I mean, Donald Trump.
It did not work.
Say what you want about Donald Trump, and I'm not a fan of him, but he
Take
beat
a stand.
the shit out of the Republican establishment.
Yeah.
He beat Jeb Bush and all these guys
Yeah.
that,
Rubio and all those
he
dudes.
wiped them
Cruz.
out.
Yep.
Bernie came very close to challenging Hillary and kind of knocking down the Democratic establishment, but he couldn't quite make it happen.
Right.
I think that's a good thing, but it's also incredibly dangerous because
it's
Trump's got his
anarchic.
fingers on the button.
Yeah.
You know.
It's an anarchic time, and it feels like, how is that going to help? You know, I don't know why the status quo is going to always serve me better just because of who I am demographically, right? But I also know that the status quo is not effective. You know, I mean, it's not going forward to create, first of all, another 100 years of this. You know, it's not going to be a sweet spot for my demographic, my middle-aged white ladiness in 50 years. Nobody's going to give a damn. And it's going to break on every level. So if we don't change with the times, it'll all fall apart. And I mean, I don't know. So what you're just going forward, right? You're just organizing as you have. Is there any change in your strategy?
Huge change. There's all kinds of new players coming into the arena.
Yeah.
With different agendas and different motivations. There is a broad recognition that American politics is, pick your adjective, flawed, rigged, broken, that it's simply not, in the most basic populist terms, the system is not designed to give the American people maximal power and maximal flexibility. It's designed to corral us and manipulate us to get to have us vote every 4 years.
Yeah.
In ways that rubber stamp choices that were decided by someone else in a back room over here.
Right.
Now that's a huge oversimplification. I mean,
sure.
I don't mean to paint that, but more and more people are saying, hey, if we don't have a democratic process that allows us to express ourselves in positive and meaningful ways, we're going to have really trouble moving forward as a country and a society. Yeah,
it's a representative republic, and it needs to be representative, and it needs everyone gets to have to figure out how to give everyone a say at least. And I know that that's not the point and purpose of the people in charge, is they want to create the illusion of choice and then make the decisions.
Yes, and I think this is not so much what Open Primaries talks about, so don't think of this as our marketing language. But I think that one of the interesting conversations in American politics right now is about whether we can remake American democracy not simply as a better consumer market, but to actually challenge consumerism. That a lot of people think I happen to believe that democracy is not simply about having better and more choices, but the people being involved in creating the choices.
Yeah.
Right? That it's not just having more choices of toothpaste that makes you a better consumer. It's, can we work together to create new options? Things that weren't possible before.
And it feels more like living a life and living as a community than just, hey, I'm going to go to Target.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But the dominant culture right now is, hey, you watch your NFL football. You raise your kids. You worry about this and that. Let us political professionals worry about politics. Every 4 years, you'll have a choice.
Right.
It'll be Bob Dole or Bill Clinton.
Yep.
You tell us which one you prefer and we'll go with that. And that's all you need to do.
That's all you need to do.
And you know what? That deal, you could even argue that deal worked.
Yeah.
You could say that deal worked. I think that the opportunity to renegotiate that contract between the American people and the political establishment is on the table. And I think that the contract could get renegotiated in some very positive ways.
Yeah.
Or some very negative ways. And that's what I find both exhilarating and terrifying.
Right. Fair enough. It's, well, it has been an hour, my friend. And,
this is great.
Yeah, this was fascinating. The watch thing, fascinating. The politics thing, even more so, quite honestly.
Anytime you want me to come back, I'd be happy.
And we could talk about, your love of bad movies.
Yes.
And,
let me just leave people with a teaser.
Yeah.
Watch Lethal Weapon 4.
4. Okay.
A fantastic bad movie.
You are my brother Russell. Rangers, I've been talking with John Opdycke, and it is O-P, D as in David, Y, C-K-E, and it's J-B as in boy, Opdycke, on Twitter. It'll be linked, and openprimaries.org is the project.
Can I give one quick plug?
Yes.
We're running a petition right now to urge the incoming chair people of the DNC and the RNC. They're selecting new leadership to adopt a 50-state open presidential primary in 2020. Both party leadership, they could do that with a sign of a pen to let every American vote in the presidential primary in 2020.
If the parties decide it, it can just happen?
Yep.
They don't even have to go through the state.
Nope. They don't have to change state law. They can dictate to the states
what they want.
Right. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's right, but they have that power right now.
So it's a Band-Aid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just letting everybody vote in the presidential primaries, it's not a complete fix, but it would be a positive step, and they could do that. And we're putting pressure on both parties to do that.
And that petition's at openprimaries.org.
Petition is at openprimaries.org.
John, thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome. Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay!